Good evening and welcome to Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here, along with the silent assassin Matt Costa, science advisor Matt Moniz, and psychic medium Stephanie Burke. Stephanie, fresh off her appearance today on the Bartcast. Yes. Hold on, let me turn that on. Yeah, I'm very out of 1 week off and I'm screwed. That's what happens is I take 1 week off to go to Plymouth Paracon and now I don't know how to do radio anymore.
That's okay, I'll forgive you.
But yes, today you were on the Bartcast on LGAB. That was your first experience into the LGAB fray.
You know, the way that you made it seem was that it was going to be terrifying, but I actually had a really good time.
Well, PBS and Dynamo are both very good hosts.
They're awesome. They were so nice to me. WR
makes that whole show run. Even though he was sick today, he couldn't really talk.
I know. He actually told me he had a bad cold, and we talked a little bit before I went live, and I had a great time talking with PBS and Dynamo, and they had excellent questions. We were just talking about that before I hung up, that it was a great interview, and I thanked Bart L for having me on, so I'll thank him again.
I told you at the beginning to make sure that you praised Bart L and everybody would love you. And see, you were worried. You thought I was setting you up for something.
Well, you know, you never know because we've been through some crazy adventures. So.
But it worked. You praised Bart L. They welcomed you into the fold.
I hope so.
You don't want to turn into Tim Dennis on the on the old LGAB.
What happened?
Tim Dennis, he's kind of persona non grata over there now. So
yeah.
Yeah, so speaking of which, I got to do another True Crime Tuesday.
Did you?
Yep.
How'd it go?
It was good. So you can check that out. And if you want to hear Stephanie on the Bartcast and you missed it, just go to ellgab.com, ELLGAB.com, or you can get it wherever really podcasts are found. They put it all over the place.
Thebartcast.com too. That's how I found it.
Yeah, but they have their own site for it. Yeah, yep. But you can just find it too, like wherever you get your podcast from. But I recommend listening to it live on Saturdays on LGAB so you can chat with everybody, or on the Bartcast site too. They also have the chat there. But you can really get into some of Stephanie's deep history listening to that. So
yeah, there was a lot.
You were telling some stories that I've never heard before.
Really?
So, yeah. Well, never heard you tell on the radio before.
I feel like
things you've told me, but that you just didn't feel comfortable telling publicly before.
Well, I did.
So you can check those out there as well. And we also want to introduce, we have a guest in the studio today. We have Lee Hazel in here with us, a friend of Matt's. And I just want to know, like, do you really think that now every friend of Matt is all in this room all at the same time?
Probably. Unless Matt's paying you all to be his friend.
Who knows? Well, as long as the check clears. How long have you guys known each other?
4 years, give or take, yeah.
And how did you meet him?
I met Matt September 2014. I went across, you probably said where I'm from London, and I went to the Experiencer Speak conference in Portland in Maine. Didn't know a soul there, and it was a long weekend. Basically, it was a 2-3 day conference, and I went across on my own and met Matt on the first night. So I came down the stairs, got ready, foolishly booked myself on the VIP night at 6 o'clock, and my plane didn't land till 4 o'clock.
Oh, wow.
That was a smart move. And I basically rushed up to the hotel room, got showered, I think, changed, came down, and Matt was at the bottom of the stairs and said, "Do you want to lift to the VIP?" And I said, "Yeah, go on then." And then the rest is history.
You got in a car with this creep?
It was at gunpoint, I might add.
I was going to say, if you were worried about making it on time and he was driving, you had no concerns.
No, you'd be 15 minutes early.
I mean, to be honest, I was so jet lagged, I would have got in the car of anyone. But and then on the way to the VIP night, Matt was telling me about his experiences in England, and Matt had stayed in places near where I was from, and so we just kind of hit it off. And
kind of instant friends.
Yeah, I think so. What they call fast friends.
It's very rare that Moniz makes fast friends.
Well,
because usually he's very standoffish with people, and he has to, he needs to get to know them first before he trusts them.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, the muck that he's put on my Facebook timeline, he's lucky I'm still around, to be honest. But
you've been pretty good at spilling your own muck.
Well, yeah. As they say, where there's muck, there's luck.
There you go. So, and you're interested in UFOs? Is that kind of your primary?
Yeah, that's a primary reason for going out there. I've had a massive interest in ufology since a small child. Watching Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World, growing up. My mum collected a magazine called The Unexplained, so me and my mum was I get my paranormal side from my mum, definitely. So it just sort of like grew from there, really. And then I saw that I would go to the UFO disclosure conferences in the UK, but they was just so low key. Mm-hmm. And then I sort of met a couple of friends from there, and they said, "Oh, we always go to America. The biggest and best conferences are in America." I was like, "Yeah, okay, everyone knows that." So next thing I know, I'm sort of searching the internet for UFO conferences and sort of the East Coast, and saw Experiences Speak. It was the logo that stuck out for me, and it was and it was the fact that all the speakers were experiencers. They wasn't sort of just authors or plug in themselves for this or that or the other. They were all experiencers, and I thought, well, that looks different. And then I went on YouTube and saw the year prior, the conference prior, because that was on YouTube, and I thought, well, there's some big names, and Travis Walton was on there, and Peter Robbins, and I thought, well, why not? Let's just do it. And at the time, I was just about to go through a divorce, and I thought, let's try and put something positive in my head. UFOs, that we call that positive, but
hey, whatever gets your mind off what you're going through.
So it was, I was going, so it was an amicable divorce, but it was still, I thought, well, let's just do it. And I think it was just in the stars, as they say. And I met Matt and the Hewins sisters, and the whole Starborn Support collective group. And then after a couple of days there, I was invited to the lake house, and we did the sky watch, and it was just amazing. I went home thinking something really special has been dropped on my lap here.
Absolutely.
Really and truly, and this guy here is just an amazing guy.
And what's funny is all the people that were part of that conference and that are usually part of that conference were all people that were kind of brought into each other's lives kind of in the same way. Yeah. So it's not like, hey, let's just go look up people that are UFO people that we would like to have at this conference. They're all interconnected with each other.
Sure.
They've all been, their journeys have crossed over the course of time. They're all part of each other's stories.
Yeah. They're all sort of, it's like a little network within. But I looked online, thought, well, this one looks all right, and it was a Sunday, and I thought, well, I'll go into the garden, and I emailed a woman who's running it called Audrey Hewins. I didn't know at the time, so I sent her an email, went back in, thought, let's make a quick cup of tea. By the time I got back in the garden, she'd replied and said, "Oh yeah, you come on over. We'd love to have you." And so we replied, 4 or 5 times within the hour, I think it was. And I thought by nightfall, I thought, I'm going. That's it. It's just let's do it.
And now you're part of their story too.
And well, hope so. I've played a part, but I mean, my brother isn't into the paranormal at all, so he was goading me the whole time, and saying, you've really done it this time. You can't. You're going all the way to America for a conference for alien abductees. It's is this a slur upon the family name? Jokingly,
Sure,
but
but still, I mean,
so I come home and shot him. So but
and now he's a ghost, and now we can
I speak to him through the Ouija board. But that's how it began, and sort of, I've had a really brilliant relationship with Matt ever since.
Well, he always speaks very highly of you. So
thank you.
So maybe you need to write him a few checks too, just like we have to.
Well, it's not just UFOs he's into. He's also experienced ghost hunting over there. And
true.
You've had a couple of places that you've checked out for me.
That's true, actually. Yeah, you went to the cemetery in London. What's the name of it now? Highgate, I think it was. Yeah. Highgate Cemetery. So I went there, and Matt said, you can take some photos, which I did, and that cemetery alone it's just full of crypts. And are you familiar with the cemetery? Or yeah. So I mean, I went there. It's the first time I'd ever been there, and I'm born and raised in London. And the cemetery is split into 2, east and west, and one side, Karl Marx is in there. Mm-hmm. So, one side you can't get in, and the other side you can only get in with a guide. And so you pay, I think it was £12. I think, like, it took us all round, and basically, he's got keys to everywhere, and it was like something out of a video game. Just all these crypts and sort of skulls and all this, and it was an eye opener. It really was.
No, that's my kind of place.
Yeah.
So when we all go over there to visit you, that's someplace we all have to go.
Yeah.
I think that we spent some time last weekend in a cemetery too.
We did,
and we're going to get into what happened last weekend for sure. For the listeners who didn't know where we were at the Plymouth Paracon last weekend. We had. I can't play the whole video on the show because it just wouldn't be good radio, but it's all up there on our Spooky South Coast page. If you go to SpookySouthCoast.com or look on our Facebook page or check out our Twitter, you'll see the link to it. But we had a very interesting session of spirit communication.
We did. That
we will get into, but we also went up to Burial Hill is in Plymouth, and that's where all the pilgrims, that's where they started burying the bodies after the first winter. And when we were there twice at night. Don't go up there without permission, people. We had permission, kind of. So when that's part of the spirit communication that we had.
Yeah.
But when you're in a place like that a cemetery that has that kind of a history, like it's really easy to forget that there's bodies buried underneath you. It's more just like the historical value of being there that you forget that there's people and that this is their final resting place.
Yeah,
it's probably the same there, I would assume.
My ex-wife was heavily into ghost hunting. She would go on this website called Fright Night or frightnights.co.uk. She would go with her sister, and so I went along to a couple of events, and my brother-in-law at the time would go as well. One of the places that we went to was in Greenwich, which is in London, and it was the old Royal Navy Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So there are hundreds and hundreds. It's like a mass burial pit.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it's they got sort of the sailors or the ex-Navy guys, and then there's another layer, and there's another layer. It's like a huge burial pit under there. So we did at the end of the night, we did not so quite a Ouija board. They brought us back. Lord Nelson's body was laid out in this place. So they said they brought us into this sort of cellar room, and so we had a table and a glass. And they said, "Oh, can you, just concentrate, see if you can make the glass move?" And so the four of us were doing it, and then we jokingly, let's take it seriously. So, and then this glass did actually start moving. And I'm looking at my brother-in-law. He's looking at me. He's like, I'm not doing this. It must be. No, I'm not doing. And then we had this sort of weird conversation. Going backwards and forwards through the glass. That we contacted this. Ex captain, if you like. So he died 200 years ago. He's still in the room, and I asked him, did you die of disease? He said yes. And I actually asked him, did you watch your own burial? And he said yes.
Oh, wow.
He had children, and just a series of yes and no's, moving the glass back and forth. And we worked out the year that he died, and but it was driving home. That was quite an eye opener as well. But I also went. Are you familiar with a place called 35 Stonegate?
No, I don't think so.
It's a well-known paranormal ghost hotspot in York, which is in Yorkshire, and my ex-wife really wanted to go there. This building is hundreds and hundreds of years old. It's so. There was probably about 20 people in this building, and we were all in the cellar, and it's probably no much bigger than this room we're in now. So the guy that was congregating at us just basically got us all to join a circle. We're all holding hands in a circle, and he's saying, I want you all to chant darker, darker, darker. He said, we want to chant this way. I thought, okay, I'm sure there could be better things I'm doing tonight. But and he's saying, oh, well, I can see, a spirit's coming down the stairs, and it's, he's going to enter the room, and, and he's now talking to the spirit, saying, I want this spirit to walk around the circle, and I want you to select one person, and can you sort of slowly push that one person into the center of the circle? And I'm thinking, oh God, here we go. And then all of a sudden I felt these sort of massive force in my back pushing me inwards, and me being stubborn, thought, no, you don't, mate. I'm pushing back, and I'm still holding the hands of the people next to me. So I sort of level back a bit, and this huge force, it felt like a set of hands, but it wasn't hands, if that makes sense, on the top of my back, pushing me into the middle, and I'm dragging the people left and right with me. And all this guy is just shouting, keep the circle, keep the circle. It's like, and so, I couldn't, I thought, that's, I couldn't explain that.
That's one of those times when you actually get touched like that, when you actually have that physical interaction, that's when you really can't deny anymore that there's something there.
And there was nothing other than a brick wall behind me, about a foot behind me. Nothing, there's no trickery, or
I always say, like, we can show people all the evidence that we want, all the video footage, photographs, play audio, whatever, but until they feel that sensation, and they realize that there's nobody there, that's what's really going to convince people.
It would convince me. Well, I got my money's worth.
I'd say so.
Yeah.
We didn't. I don't think that. Do we have anybody that got really touched last weekend?
You touched Porter.
Yeah, but that was on purpose.
I know. I don't know.
That was because I was told to.
You did. You were told to.
I don't want to keep teasing it. We'll get into that too. I feel like such a radio guy. That's all coming up later on in the show.
I don't know if anybody. Oh, Doogie. Doogie did. Remember when I was saying tap tap?
Oh, right.
He kept getting tapped on his hand.
Again, we'll get into all that later on in the program. Stay tuned. But I do want to say, too, while we're talking about some international ghost stories, we do have a big international audience. And people listen to us around the world. And, of course, we want everybody to watch us on Spooky TV at SpookySouthCoast.com. If you're new to the program and you're just listening for the first time, we have in-studio cameras all around, so you can see all of us as we're talking. It's kind of creepy, but people seem to like it. And you can watch the show and you can interact with us in the chat room. We also want to let you know that if you are in the chat room with us, we do have Super Chat turned on. However, tonight it's not going to a charity, so if you use Super Chat, it goes to us. So any donations that you make through Super Chat will go to the Spooky Crew to help us put on this show. And then also, we have a brand new partnership that we can announce tonight. Now, those of you who know and have been listening to the Dark Matter Digital Network, you know that we've been on Dark Matter since the very beginning. They rebroadcast our show. I think it's Tuesday nights at 7:30. So you can always, and a bunch of other times too. So you can always hear Spooky South Coast if you miss it on the Dark Matter Digital Network. And of course, we have podcasts and video archives and all that stuff too. But starting tonight, we are broadcasting under an all-new format on the Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. So if you have the Paranormal Radio app already on your phone, because you're using that to listen to Midnight in the Desert, you're using that to listen to Coast to Coast AM, maybe you're listening to some classic Art Bell, maybe you're listening to Spaced Out Radio, all these different shows that are out there, all these different networks that are out there. If you're listening to Paranormal Radio through the Paranormal Radio app on Saturday nights live, you can listen to Spooky South Coast that way. So all you have to do is download the app, and I'm going to do it, I already have it downloaded, but all you have to do is open up the Paranormal Radio app and just roll through until you find us. And right now it's our first night on there, so you got to scroll down a little bit to be able to find Spooky South Coast. But then once you do, if you start listening to us that way, we'll move up the ranks there, and you'll be able to find us there. And also, if you hit the menu button and you go to podcasts, you'll be able to find all the Spooky South Coast podcast episodes in the Paranormal Radio app too. So I'm going to I'm just going to put it up there to the screen, and it's really, really easy to use. It's very simple. You just touch what it is that you want to listen to, and it goes right to it. And then what happens is when you are ready to close it out, it's not like all these other apps that are out there. It's super easy to just close down, and then you're done. So it's you can hear me, see? And it sounds great. See, that sounds good. So all you have to do is download the app. I'm going to do it. Thanks, me. Download it. But all you have to do is open up the me.
Radio
You can
app
stop now,
and
me.
just roll through until you find us.
So
Easy to close, right?
Just hit exit. That's all you got to do. And so there you go. So check us out on the Paranormal Radio app, and we highly recommend that you download it. Android, Apple, whatever you use there, you can get it, and you can never be away from spooky South Coast. But really, why would you want to be with us 24 hours a day anyway? But we're there if you want us. So I have been kind of referencing a little bit of what happened last weekend. I mean, first of all, we have to say the Plymouth Paracon was a fantastic event.
It was.
It was very rich in history. We got to learn a lot of stuff.
We did, and at the same time, with our personal connections to where we were and the people that we know, we really, I think, hit it out of the park when it came to history and stories and ghost hunting.
I thought our heads were going to explode with how much stuff we were taking in. Like,
Yes.
as much as I thought that I already knew about Plymouth, first of all, just hanging out with Jeff Campbell all
I was
weekend.
going to say, I need to give a huge shout out to Jeff Campbell. If nobody has taken his Plymouth night tour, you need to do that, absolutely. He runs a shop called Remember Plymouth, which is right behind, is it Ziggy's Ice Cream?
Mm-hmm.
So stop in for ice cream, then stop in for a night
Pumpkin
tour.
ice cream, highly
and
recommend
he
it.
has awesome Harry Potter stuff in his store. You'll never want to leave. But he is so full of knowledge when it comes to his historical tours.
Listen, I don't even like Harry Potter at all, but that
It's
butterbeer
such a cool
was
store.
fantastic.
I'm
Very good. It's just
I'm
like a
obsessed.
butterscotch cream soda. So good.
right, but I'm obsessed with Harry Potter, so you're welcome.
Well, I knew Jeff probably before you knew Harry Potter. That's how long I've known him.
I know, but
He's
you didn't know about butterbeer.
he is definitely the go-to guy for stuff in Plymouth. And
Yes.
so when Sam said he was putting together Plymouth Paracon, I said you got to get Jeff Campbell involved because not only does he know more than anybody, but he knows everybody in town.
Correct.
To be able to get, and it's not an easy town to get access
It's
to
not.
haunted locations. Moniz, you've been doing this stuff in this area for a long time.
30-something years, yeah. It's like you got to know somebody to get into places.
And I do. And I know people, and they still say no.
Right.
The not to put anybody on blast, but the Antiquarian Society in Plymouth, which owns a lot of these haunted locations, these historical locations, they don't want to let anybody in that's doing this kind of stuff. So it's very hard to get any kind of access whatsoever. So the fact that we could even get into the Church of the Pilgrimage was huge. Mm-hmm. Being able to go up and check out Burial Hill. I know you guys were disappointed with the grist mill, but it's still cool to go over there in the dark at night.
I wouldn't say I was disappointed. I just thought it was funny because I had no idea where we were
Everybody
going.
was complaining because I walked them across the street to the duck pond.
You took a bunch of drunk people on a long
That was
walk.
the
That
biggest
was
problem, is they were drunk. Yeah.
Right.
And they were not wearing appropriate footwear.
No, they were not.
Even though I told everybody to go change. So we had a great time with the VIP party on Friday night, and then we kind of went off and did a little poking around on our own. And then on Saturday, the convention was, it was packed all day. Mm-hmm. Every lecture had a full room.
Right.
The full house for all the lectures. And it's always daunting when you follow somebody that's a legend like John Zaffis. Mm-hmm. I said, all these people are going to get up. Now, they saw John Zaffis. They're going to get up. They're going to want to go stretch their legs or get something to eat or walk around. But nope, they all stayed and they listened to Stephanie and I talk.
Yes, they did.
And I actually let Stephanie talk.
You did. It was awesome.
Which she was kind of surprised by. She kept looking over at me like, are you going to cut me off now? Are you going to cut me off now? But you got to share some very interesting stories with the folks.
Yes.
Especially the lecture that we gave. It's definitely something that's more, we need to hear more from you than me in that lecture anyway, because we're talking about using abilities on investigations. Mm-hmm. And then, we had a great VIP dinner after that.
It was actually really good.
I know, and you don't like a lot of stuff.
I know.
But it just so happened that you fortunately sat down right at the quesadilla table.
I did. Wasn't that such a good...
It's almost like
Yes.
you're psychic.
Right. It was so weird.
But she sat down at the quesadilla table. Porter and I did not sit down at the pulled pork table,
Yeah, you followed me and you probably shouldn't have.
but we still found a way.
Right.
Uh,
Sharing is caring.
Yes. So we still, but T-Bones put out a great spread for
Yes.
everybody. And I can still taste that cornbread.
Oh my God, it was so good in that butter. Can we go now?
If you're listening, T-Bones, we're here till midnight if you want to drop off some
Right.
cornbread with apple cinnamon butter.
Oh, it was so good.
And then we got ready for the investigation. And so normally when you have these big group investigations, you want everybody to break up into smaller groups. And we had in this Church of the Pilgrimage, there's 2 floors, really. So there's the first floor, which didn't used to be the first floor.
Right.
From what Jeff was telling us, originally the chapel upstairs was actually the first floor. So you used to walk into the chapel from street level. But what they did is in later years, they raised up that level and they built a level underneath it. So down there, it's kind of like the fellowship hall where they have the stage and the kitchen and all that kind of stuff. And so that's where we started off. And John Zaffis took a group upstairs. And so John Zaffis is a big proponent of EchoVox. For those who don't know, and I can talk about it now because they talk about it publicly when they didn't used to. I've known this for a while and I had to keep it under my hat. But when Mark Arvela and Lauren Sheridan started using EchoVox, I think I'm the one that introduced. I'm pretty sure I'm the one that introduced them to it. But when they started using it, they started using it on their investigations. They started investigating with John Zaffis, and they hang out quite frequently and they do different things together. And so they got Zaffis to start using the EchoVox, and he was having his uncle Ed Warren come through on every investigation that they do. So those of you who are familiar with Ed and Lorraine Warren, you've seen the Conjuring movies. John Zaffis is their nephew. Ed has passed away, and he was coming through EchoVox talking to John. And even if John wasn't there, Ed was giving messages to Mark and Lauren on their investigations to share with John. So John has become a very big proponent of EchoVox, and he uses it on all of his investigations.
Right.
So he's upstairs using that, and we're going to stay downstairs. And I don't know, had you been thinking about this experiment, or did it just kind of pop into your head?
I figured, I've been doing a lot of Estes Method everywhere because, I learned it a while ago, but I like the idea of kind of bridging that gap between the mediumship abilities and the actual equipment. I don't necessarily agree with using the spirit box, even though that's how it was originally developed, the SB7.
I just don't like it.
I don't like it because it uses the radio waves, and I just don't think that, of course you're going to get full sentences sometimes because it's radio waves. You're listening to actual voices. So, this is actually the first time that I did it with EchoVox. I don't know if I told you that or not.
No, I know that we did it in Mount Washington, but you didn't.
I didn't do it with
under.
EchoVox. I did it with the SB7. So I've always done it with the SB7. I've never done it with EchoVox. So I figured we're at a location that has so much history. That entire area has so much history. Then why not try something different? Because I knew John Zaffis was going to go upstairs and do a regular investigation with EchoVox going. We could have done the same thing downstairs. People still would have been happy, but I thought, what would truly make people walk away saying, what just happened? And that's what I like to do everywhere we go. Every time I investigate, that is the result that I want to give to people and I want people to walk away with, is what just happened. I can't believe that. And I want people to continue talking about it, as this was so crazy. Now, we know going in investigations, that doesn't always happen, but I've been really lucky lately. So I figured, let's try this. But then I figured, you had EchoVox. Porter had EchoVox. Porter had his headphones. I had a pair of headphones in my car if I needed them, and I had my sleep mask in my room. So why not try to make this happen? So I figured Ty had learned how to do the Estes Method from Connor Randall, Carl Pfeiffer, and Michelle Tate, who came up with this entire idea. So he was probably the best choice to do this with me because Porter and Doogie only had a half hour sleep before they flew in the night before. So sticking somebody underneath that trance is the best way I can describe it, is probably not the safest thing to do if you've only had a half hour
Not
sleep.
only that, but there's a good chance that if they're blindfolded and they can't hear us talking to them, they could have dozed off.
Right.
So, like, nothing against them, but like, if you doze off, you're no help in this experiment.
Porter is still so mad at me for not allowing him to do it, but I figured for safety reasons, it wasn't the safest option. So I figured Ty was experienced. I was experienced. I didn't know what was going to happen because I remember what happened to you with EchoVox in the princess room. And to me, that was a dangerous situation. And, thank God you had a group of people around you that were super supportive and knew what was happening.
You know me, I usually don't care about things. I'm usually like, whatever. I definitely would not recommend doing that the first time alone.
Correct. So having that support system there was great. But I needed somebody that was going to be able to mentally handle that. So Ty's done it a bunch of times with an SB7. I don't think he's ever done it with EchoVox.
No, he was kind of afraid to do it with EchoVox, I think.
Right, and I don't know if he'll ever do it again now. So we're actually going to hear from Ty in about a half hour or so, and you can get our take on what happened. But I I figured it was a good idea. So let's do, and the other thing I didn't want to do, because Ty had looked at me, he said, do you have a splitter? I said, no, we're going to do this completely separate. So what people may not know from watching that video, I know you wrote,
I wrote a whole post about it on
Right. Sometimes people
SpookySouthCoast.com
don't
to
read
try
it.
to explain what was going on.
right. But I was hooked up to Porter's phone with one EchoVox running with separate headphones, and Ty was hooked up to your Android tablet, which was completely separate with his own headphones running. And we decided to make it even weirder and hold hands the entire time to link our energy in order to see what would happen. If it would make it stronger, if it would repel it, what was going to happen. I didn't know what was going to happen. I knew how EchoVox works. I knew how the Estes Method works. Pairing them together and then doing this with Ty, I had no idea what was going to happen, but I was really hoping for a completely mind-blowing result.
So just to kind of take a step back for those who are unfamiliar. So first of all, EchoVox is an app that you put on your phone or your tablet or what have you, where instead of being a ghost box that sweeps through radio waves, which, you know I was really into a few years ago, but as I've done more and more investigation with them, all I'm realizing is that, you're getting a lot of false positives because it's radio.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest problem is you get a lot of coincidences that then become considered, evidence of something. Really what it is it's just the fact that you said, where are we? Boston. Well, of course the radio said Boston, and of course you're in Boston.
Yes.
It's not enough to be differentiated from, coincidence. So what I like about EchoVox is this app has multiple banks of just pieces of phonetic speech. So it's just the phonemes of human speech broken up into these different banks that's all circulating through randomly at different times. So there's never supposed to be any words coming through. And I know Porter ripped it apart.
Yes.
He went into the banks and went through it all to make sure that there isn't anything in there that's, any predetermined words or anything or phrases that are being used.
Right.
And I went through the early version of it doing the same thing. And the creator of it, Danny Roberge, has no problem putting all that information out there.
Right.
Because he just says, I just made it. I don't know how it works or why it works. I just make it. And this is what happens. And that seems to be the way that some of the best equipment in the field works.
Correct.
And so he said that he was going to, keep updating this and upgrading it and finding more different controls you can put on it. So the EchoVox 3.0 that we're using has a lot of different settings that you can set to it. I like to turn up all the echo, all the decay, everything I can do to distort that signal as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
I turn on full reverb, full echo, and you're only supposed to be getting phonetic sounds, but you will get not only words, you will get full speeches, full sentences,
Yes.
full paragraphs. Ty went off on a rant at one point with stuff that was coming through. That was just amazing.
I think it was funny when he was actually sounding like he was leaving a message on an answering machine.
Yes. But that's the thing about using EchoVox is even when you start to get used to using that, there's a little bit of a bias in what you're hearing because you're asking the question and then, oh, it sounded like a no to me, or it sounded like this, or it sounded like that. So with the Estes method, with the person that's actually listening to the EchoVox, they have on noise canceling headphones and they have on a blindfold. Now, most of the time you don't need the blindfold in the dark, but it's better to have it on because it's sensory deprivation to some degree.
Right.
And you're really hyper-focused in on what it is that you're hearing. So you can't see the people that are asking the questions, and you can't hear the people that are asking the questions. Your job as the person that's going under in this is only to repeat what it is that you hear, and not to make any interpretation of what it is that you're hearing either. Just say, because you'll have to probably agree with this a little bit, Stephanie, that a lot of it isn't necessarily that it's exactly what you heard, it's what you felt that you heard.
With me, it's different.
But you can understand for the common person, like a lot of it is like, don't think back to what that is, just say what you feel is what
Right.
it was.
The toughest part, and I should say, like, Ty and I know how to do this the proper way, and we don't necessarily tell people because we don't want people to go out and do it because it is dangerous. But being able to say exactly what you're hearing and like tuning in, I tune in a little bit deeper than
Sure.
say Ty would. So a lot of it, like, I was trying to block out the mediumship part because it was starting to fly through, to be able to focus on those words,
Right.
and to repeat what I'm hearing. But of course, it's all up to your interpretation. I might hear something that Ty might hear, But if you watch the video, we were hearing the same thing.
So I'm sorry.
To me, this experiment sounds like an audio psychomantium.
Pretty much. I mean, except the fact that with the Echovox, you will get stuff that comes through very clear. So with a psychomantium, you're not exactly totally sure all the time of some things that you're seeing, and then sometimes you get whacked with something that's direct. Yeah. This would be like constant direct stuff, just because it's maybe for the person using it for the first time, it might sound like a bunch of garbled mess. Mm-hmm. But when you've done it a few times and you really learn how to kind of fine tune what you're hearing, it's like nonstop, at least words. Not always full sentences, but at least words. And what's interesting about it is, so not only could you not hear the people that were asking the questions, you can't hear each other either. No. Even though you're sitting right next to each other. And I actually said to the room, there's probably about 50 people in the room, and I said to all the people in the room, if you don't believe this, if you think that they can hear each other, if you think that they can hear the questions that we're asking them, I invite you to come up on the stage afterwards, and I will put you, I'm not going to do the experiment with you because Stephanie was telling us not to let people under it. Mm-hmm. Generally, I do. If you come on an event with me and we're investigating, I will let you try it because I think everybody should learn how to do it, and you should learn how to do it from somebody that knows what they're doing. And I like to think I kind of know what I'm doing a little bit. But when she says, don't let anybody do it tonight, there's a reason for that, even if she can't quite explain what that reason is. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, I'll respect that.
And you didn't.
I did respect it when we went upstairs. That was an intentional thing. Okay. Because I knew at that point, I knew that whatever warning you gave me didn't count. Okay. You know what I'm saying?
No.
There was nothing that was going to happen up there.
Because it already happened to me.
No, but I just knew the minute that I walked in there.
Yeah.
Nothing. So maybe that's a little bit of my own sensitivities, but I just knew, I was like, I could put anybody into this right now and nothing's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Totally safe. Because there was just, first of all, you're in a church.
Right.
So, I mean, you got to think that you got to be somewhat protected in there anyway.
You'd hope so.
But also, like, I just knew. I was like, I can put anybody under this all day. Nobody's going to there's not even going to be a single response to a question that even sounds, because I just felt like there was nothing in the room. Mm-hmm. So that's why I did it there. Now, had we been downstairs, nope, wouldn't have done it. But I did tell people that if they wanted to go up there and just put the headphones on and hear it so they could see if they could hear what people were saying next to them, just to show them that we weren't screwing around.
Well, in the video, when Dan gets close to us, you can hear how loud the Echovox is and how there's no way that we would be able to hear anybody around us. The only thing that I could hear once, I think, was when the entire room erupted in laughter. But it was because you're talking about 40 plus people laughing very loud at the same time. So to me, it was like faint laughter. But I knew I had said something dirty. So everybody was laughing at it. And like it made me laugh because I'm like, oh, I can't even imagine what this means right now.
Right. You know the words that you're spitting out. So you know, like, if you say something that's a certain phrase, it's probably going to make people laugh, but you don't know the context of where it came from, which was what made it really interesting. Mm-hmm. And I know what you need to sleep at night. Right. So I know what your sleep mask must be like.
Yes.
But even the fact that, just as an example,
it's a blackout mask. And it's like super tight to your face, like contoured to your face.
You can see it in the video. It looks like you're wearing a bra over your face.
Right.
So there's, it's covered. There's no light sneaking in. And what's funny is there was at one point there was cars that would come down, because for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Church of the Pilgrimage in Plymouth, if you know where Burial Hill is, there's the 1749 courthouse. Is that what it is? 1749.
I think so.
So there's the courthouse there. There's another stone church right there, and then there's the wooden church, which is the Church of the Pilgrimage. And so the hill, Burial Hill, is up on the side, and the road that comes down from there is a hill coming down the hill. So cars would be driving down that hill because it's Saturday night in Plymouth. It's, everybody's going to the bars and everything. And so cars are coming by all night, and the cars would come down, and as they're driving down the road, the headlights would shine into the fellowship hall, and the headlights would hit them on the stage, and never reacted for a whole bunch of the times that this happened. So it just seemed weird that there's this one time when, as the headlight's coming down, Stephanie says, "Turn off the light," even though there's no way you could see those headlights
Right.
with that mask on.
There's no way.
So, and it was like instantaneous.
If I could have seen the headlights, I would have had a horrible reaction because we had been sitting in pitch black, dark for, at that point, probably about an hour. Because you saw at the end of the video, you'll see how Ty and I actually react to somebody shining a flashlight in our eyes the minute that our blindfolds come off. It was horrible.
A totally unrelated question just came up in the chat room. I'm wanting to know if I ever made a cheese sandwich using raisin bread. Everybody knows that if you make a sandwich with raisin bread, you use cream cheese.
What?
You never had a cream cheese and raisin bread sandwich?
I have not.
So when I was in...
But I'm so hungry right now.
I'm starving. When I was in 5th grade, they used to make those in the cafeteria at the school that I went to that was right around the corner from where we were in Plymouth. So they used to have the cream cheese and raisin bread sandwich, and I was like, who would ever eat such a thing? That sounds gross.
Is it good?
One day I had to go and get lunch, and there was no hot lunch left because I went to lunch late because I was in... You're not going to believe me when I tell you this, but I was in chorus. I know.
Really?
Yeah. Me, the guy that'll never sing. Yeah,
Wow.
so I used to be in chorus, and I was staying late for something for chorus, and I came down late to lunch, and the only thing that was left was the raisin bread and cream cheese sandwich. And so I had it, and it wasn't bad. And when I worked at the diner for years, I would occasionally make one and eat them. It's not terrible. I mean, I like cream cheese on raisin toast anyway, so it's just...
I don't know. I think I've done butter on raisin toast.
Butter's good, too. Butter and...
I'll just add to that. We went to a diner this morning, and I found out...
Oh!
Yeah, right.
I'm sorry. When you get food poisoning, you can blame it on him.
Marble rye bread toast, was it?
Yeah, marble.
Oh, geez.
Marble rye. I had that, and when it was plonked on the plate and put in front
They've
of me,
upgraded since we've been there.
I thought
marble
I
rye.
thought it was chocolate because of the colour.
Because of the
I thought,
colour?
well, you know.
So,
Like, what are these crazy Americans serving me for
I
breakfast?
thought, well, yeah, as soon as I thought that, I thought, right, you Americans have got it so right.
Right? No, they don't.
by the way, this is the time of the. I haven't done this in a while. This is where I admonish Moniz for still going to the restaurant that fired me. So, some friend,
Here
But in
we
my own
go.
defense, I was going there before you were ever hired.
some friend. Yeah, it wasn't.
It's gross there.
It's not. We're not naming it, so I guess we can get away with saying
yeah.
it. But yeah, I wouldn't eat that.
There's so many other options to take him to. Like, he comes all the way over here to see you, cares so much
He's the
about
one
you.
that requested to go there.
Because you
That
obviously
is
haven't
absolutely true, and I know now twice that Matt's informed me that they filmed Ted 2 there,
Yes,
and
they
I was
did.
They
told
did.
exactly what table
Yeah.
Ted
Yeah,
sat at.
the grossest one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
So,
one
I
with
don't know what he had. Don't
The one with duct tape on it.
Right.
But you only request to go there because he hasn't taken you anywhere nice.
Right.
He took me to the rifle range today. I mean,
Yeah, no, we'll give you a list of restaurants that you need to request
we
to
went
go to.
one after.
Well, hold on.
the long, what was
Longhorn?
it? The Longhorn. That was
Okay,
really nice.
all
Yeah,
right, that's an
you-
upgrade.
You can't let him leave without taking him to your dog mill.
I want to take him. Is it open tomorrow?
I think so. I think they're open on Sundays.
It should be.
I mean, if not, I suppose you could settle for Caserla somewhere else, but
I'm
it's
so
not
hungry.
the same.
Yeah, we're all talking about.
Seriously, I'm gonna send you on a taco.
At least we're not
run
talking. We're
soon.
not
I
talking
was
about.
just thinking that.
I'm
Am
so
I going on
hungry.
the taco?
We're not
Bell
talking
run?
about snacks. We're talking about full-out meals. So
Right,
at least
but you
there's
know
that.
what's bad? We joke all the time and call it Spooky Snack Coast because we're always starving.
But going back into the Estes Method, and certainly during we're about 8 minutes away from the news break, so we recommend that during the news break, if you want to go and check it out at SpookySouthCoast.com or on any of our social media, you can see the blog post and the video. Obviously, it's almost an hour video, and that we left you under for way too long.
You did.
We definitely should not have left them in this state for almost an hour. But at one point, like Porter's looking at me and saying, like, it's been 20 minutes. We should probably pull them back. And then something else amazing would happen. And then he'd come back. It's been 25 minutes. We should probably pull him. And then something else amazing would happen.
Well, I taught him to do 15-minute increments only. And when we did it in Virginia, we were both so wiped out, we passed out immediately as soon as we were done with our event. And like the next day, we're both looking at each other like, we don't know how we're going to do this again because it was so draining. So he knows how that feels, and he's super overprotective on top of it. So
You do
I'm
realize that's why
shocked.
nobody really does 2 events in
I know,
back-to-back
I know,
days.
but we had to because we were traveling. But I'm thinking to myself, in the short amount of time I could think, between you and Porter being as overprotective as you are about me, how are you letting me still do this? But it was so interesting, like the stuff that I was hearing, which were just words. I'm thinking like your questions must be insane right now, and I'm dying to know what was happening.
So we'll tease it a little bit and say, I was ready to cut it
Yep.
when right before we started to get into the Native American stuff.
Right.
And what's funny is I was actually asking, because I'm thinking at this point, like people have been watching this for 20, 25 minutes. I'm thinking they must be getting bored sitting in the audience watching this. No. Like these people came to investigate, and they didn't want to go off and investigate. They wanted to sit and watch what was going on.
We started with maybe 15 people in the room, and we opened our eyes an hour later to every single person.
Everybody
that was
from
there.
upstairs came down. And what's funny is every time somebody would come downstairs, which you physically can't see
Right.
because the staircase was behind them, behind a wall. There's just 2 open doorways that you have to go in. And every time somebody would come down the stairs, either her or Ty would say, up, up. Like they would hear up come through the echo box. And it took a little while before Porter figured it out, but he realized, or maybe it was Doogie, but one of them realized that it was every time that somebody went down the stairs, for some reason they would say up. And I don't know why. The only thing I can think of is maybe because there used to not be that first floor. And
Either that, or they just didn't want more people coming in. They might have liked the more intimate experience. So you never know.
The other thing, you know what? I was going to tease it, but I think I'll just play it.
Yeah.
Maybe I can just play it. Maybe I can even just do it now. But there's one point where we tried to get you to be done with it. And I'm going to apologize if there's any language in this. It mocked your tone.
did. It mocked.
Sound like a door slammed.
Oh, did anybody hear a door slam?
Go out with me.
Yes. Some of this will sound really weird out of context, but
2.
Couldn't find the bell.
After it.
Careful. Help him.
if I find the bell, will you go?
I'm here.
Your turn.
Prevailing theory that
Porter, come here.
is the belt in one piece.
No hair.
Nope.
It's funny that you said Porter come here,
Sport.
and then he says no hair, no.
Talk to me.
Do you want to
Face
say
me.
goodbye to?
We're gonna pull you out.
I think it's time to say goodbye.
No,
We're gonna say goodbye.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we're gonna say goodbye now.
Say goodbye.
Sorry.
No.
Yes. Thank you for talking to us.
You can talk to us another time.
I have her.
No, you don't.
No, you don't. So,
We'll see you later.
Old
thank you very much.
son.
No.
Yes.
I swear right after this. You might want to cut it.
That was creepy. That's why we definitely ended it right there. Like, no, I have her. And so if you hear that back, like you're hearing, she doesn't know that we're saying that it's time to go.
Yeah.
She's just saying no. And then
I remember feeling super angry when I was saying that too, because when you're under like that, you can hear the voices of the spirits changing. That's horrible. Don't even
that's
do
the
that.
best free shot of all time right there.
You're so mean to me.
Sorry, go
You know,
ahead.
I didn't embarrass you on the
Nobody
Bartcast
can
today.
see that on camera.
Oh, they better not be able to.
No.
They asked me for an embarrassing story about Spooky Tim, and I said I didn't know.
No, that's only because you couldn't pick from all the many.
Yeah.
There were many. So I asked for more time. I needed an extension. So
You were feeling angry.
I was feeling like it was getting louder. And I tried to say everything exactly how I heard it with the exact same tone that I heard it in, because that just makes it more authentic. But I remember thinking, I talk very soft. Everybody always yells at me to talk louder. But I was thinking to myself the entire time I'm saying this, nobody's going to be able to hear what I'm saying. I probably need a microphone. But you guys apparently had no problem hearing me.
No problem at all.
So I remember like it was getting
Which
bad.
is weird because generally like you can't
No.
You know, you can't project loud
Right.
enough for people.
And even if I do, I feel like I'm screaming, and people are like, I still can't hear
Like
you.
we were in a room that was far smaller than that earlier in the day,
and people still couldn't hear me
and,
talking.
I'm fortunate to use the microphone
Yep.
because people couldn't hear. But this, I mean, obviously too, it's a different type of hall, so there's a little bit more acoustic.
yeah, but
you
it
know,
was
stuff's
still,
taken to
there's
play,
no
but-
way. But I remember just feeling so mad. That spirit was so angry.
And that's when we decided, like, that's enough is enough. When it said, no, I have her,
Yeah.
we're like, nope, this is getting into something that is a little bit darker than we want to take that turn. But you didn't feel like you were in
I
danger.
felt okay.
Yeah.
If I felt like I wasn't okay, I would have pulled myself out. I think it was just like I have a voice and I'm not letting go of
Right.
it.
Yeah. I want
If
to be
it
able
was
to
dark, I
keep
wouldn't have allowed it.
communicating.
Yeah.
And so we'll talk more in the next hour, and I might just have to fumble through finding some of the audio because, like I said, so we got this from Dan. You got it yesterday,
Yes.
and I got it today, and I really didn't have time to like pull out the audio because it's almost an hour-long file. So I had to be able to upload it and then write the blog and everything, and I had to do a bunch of other stuff. So ideally, I would have liked to have just picked out some segments and just had them ready to go. But so bear with us because we do want to play some of these clips for you because it was, I mean, I'm never going to come on here and make a big deal about something that we did on an investigation unless I think it's that big of a deal. Otherwise, it doesn't make for great radio. But I think that this was a profound experience. And I think that it's something that everybody that is interested in paranormal research should check out. And you can do so during the break. Catch a little bit of it before we come back and talk about it. We'll come back on the other side with Ty discussing it more here on Spooky South Coast. Welcome back. Hour number 2 of Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here, along with the silent assassin Matt Costa, science advisor Matt Moniz, psychic medium Stephanie Burke, and our special visitor tonight, Lee Hazel. And we are talking about, we've been talking about what happened last week at the Plymouth Paracon with the, I guess we'll call it the double Estes Method experiment.
There you go. That'll work.
Where we had Stephanie and Ty Gowen from Haunt Me, both underneath the Estes Method, noise-canceling headphones on, running Echo Vox, blindfolded, could not see us, could not hear us, just completely enveloped in whatever it was that was coming over Echo Vox and sharing that directly without any interpretation and without any kind of filter.
Outside influence. There's nothing.
And so we've been talking a little bit about it with Stephanie, but let's bring on now Ty, who is her cohort in all of this. Good evening, Ty. How are you?
Hi, I'm calling in for psychic medium Stephanie Burke.
Oh, are you calling for a reading?
Yeah, I was wondering, I know it's late, but I didn't want to bother you guys earlier today because the show's been going so well.
Well, thank you for checking in with us. Have you recovered from what happened last Saturday?
Absolutely. I mean, I didn't have much time because I was right off the next day. But it honestly, dude, it took me like an hour to like shake it afterwards.
Yes.
All joking aside, it was a scramble for sure.
We definitely kept you under way longer than we should have.
Yeah,
Yes.
weren't you the one that was supposed to pull us out?
Well, Porter and I kept talking about it, and then every time we would get ready to do it, something else amazing would start coming through, and we'd say to ourselves, "No, they'd want us to keep going."
That's how the ghosts get you.
That's when we called it, is when they actually said they were going to get, that they had Stephanie. So that's when we said, no.
That's what I heard happen. So thank you for pulling us out.
So just reiterating kind of what we had covered in the first hour, you could not hear anything that she was saying. You could not hear anything that we were saying. I know at one point, Jeff Campbell was standing really close to you, and you were able to hear him, and you actually pointed out, like, whoever's near me, you're too close. I can almost hear you.
Yeah, I think that, it's only built on truth, and so, like, if I could hear anyone through it, I thought it was really important to be very transparent about that. Let's just very much make sure that we're all doing the experiment right. So if someone's too close or too loud, I just feel like you should definitely call it out, because even though they're noise-canceling headphones and they're almost soundproof, that almost factor is still there, that it's not completely sound, resistant. So I heard someone yell at one point, and I just wanted to make sure that they backed up, that there was no more guessing that, that had been happening the whole time, because for most of that hour, it was just weird freaking noises, voices that made no sense whatsoever, screaming in my head.
And it was you know, in the room for the rest of us, like, we could feel how weird it must have been for you. We were kind of feeling the tension and the strangeness of what was going on. How did you physically feel while you were under this and while you had all this going on?
Well, I can't speak for Stephanie, but for me, it was really overwhelming and dizzying at first, and so I didn't want to be a spectacle up there, so I just focused on my breathing for a while, because it was just confusing and anxiety-inducing. So I didn't want to be dizzy. I didn't want to throw up or anything like that. I didn't want to end up like you at the Mount Washington. So I just kept breathing for a bit, and then I finally calmed down and got used to it. But I think the good factor there is that Stephanie had me hold hands, and it was a good grounding factor. So you didn't float away in the darkness. Because I know that you had said that you felt like you were floating down a long hallway.
Mm-hmm.
And by having Stephanie's hand in mine, it was a grounding factor that was you're here right now. And then I could feel her re-gripping when stuff might have been going on with her. So it was just kind of a focus factor to not float away.
And really what was going on for us, you know, we're just kind of watching you guys for any small signs of any uncomfortableness, or, just looking to see if you're uncomfortable. And what I noticed, both of you had your legs, bouncing up and down, but at different rates. But it was something that kind of kicked in for both of you kind of around the same time, and you can see kind of that. It was almost like it was an antsiness of what was coming, like you were both kind of dealing with some anxiety about what was going on.
It must have been an unconscious way to burn that off, maybe. Because when I do it with, when I've done an Estes Method with, an SB7 spirit box, it kind of gives you a rhythm. So I've been told that my foot or my hand bounces along to the rhythm, but the Echovox has no rhythm, and I think that's part of the off-putting factor of it. Is there's nothing to just kind of ease into and feel comfortable with. So maybe that foot kick was trying to find the beat or something and just find some normalcy in it. But it's interesting that both Steph and I started at the same time, because it must have meant that we were approaching peril at the same time.
I know when I did it, it was my entire body was vibrating and shaking, and I could feel that my heart rate was going through the roof. And if you watch that video, you can see there's times where I take a break and I just take a long, deep breath and let it out, because I was trying to stay focused and stay grounded. And at the same time, I felt like it was kind of my responsibility to keep Ty and I both grounded, because like I said before, it was Ty's first time with Echovox, right, Ty?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was an odd experiment, but I figured if anybody could handle it, it was the two of us, because you had a lot of experience doing this with the SB7 many times. So I figure if we're going to throw anybody to the wolves, let's do it ourselves. And I have to apologize because somebody had told me at one point, your contract was over hours before and you weren't even supposed to be there. So I was like, oh my God, I threw him completely to the wolves.
That's all good. I came to hang out with you guys, and I guess we did that in the weirdest way, which is kind of our norm.
As usual, yes. Something always happens to us, so
absolutely,
we kind of embrace it.
And I had the haunt me girls there too, by the right-hand side, Carol and Katie. So, I knew that honestly, it was our friends in the room, along with all of the guests. So we were going to be in good hands no matter what.
It was very touching to see, how concerned that Carol and Katie got at different points for you, but also it was kind of funny to see how at some points they were like, no, he's fine, keep pushing.
Yes. It was super funny.
That sounds like them.
It was really funny. But I feel like the amount of people that we had in the room that we were super close with just really helped add to what we were trying to accomplish, because I figured, I'd mentioned before, Ty, I don't know if you got to hear the part of the show, but you had asked me if I had a splitter. And I said, no, we're going to do this on 2 separate devices, because I really truly wanted to see what was going to happen. If we're hearing the same things on the same device, okay, great. But on 2 different devices, that just makes it way weirder and way cooler.
Right. What kind of input is coming in, and how is that being manipulated through our brains?
And
because when you think about it, to be completely frank on this show, I don't think any of us truly know exactly what's going on with one of these Estes Method sessions. There's so many variables esoterically of like what is actually happening, because there's the whole factor of like, is a spirit manipulating the Echovox technology, or is somewhere along the lines of the Echovox creating just basically a buffet of things that our brains are choosing from that is influenced by like a psychic awareness of what's going in the room, or do we go to the Tenny factor of it, that the Echovox is just giving us the ingredients and the ghosts are basically tricking our minds, with electromagnetic energy in just the right spots, make us speak the way that we're supposed to. And it's fascinating to think like where on the spectrum that night actually fell.
Oh, completely. And I think because there are so many variables and we don't know where it falls and there is no true way to really explain it away, that makes it all the more fascinating.
Absolutely, which is why I wanted to dive in and actually do it. Because it's fun, because it's like at these events that get done anywhere, not just the Plymouth Paracon, it's like you want to be able to show people not just what ghost hunting in paranormal investigation can be or is, but you also want to show them like how to push the boundaries, and that's what we should be doing whenever we're out in the field. It's not just a field trip to the dark and waiting for something to bump in the night and, have someone see a shadow figure, take that story home, or a K2 meter light up from 1 green light to 2 green lights, and they go home satisfied. But when you have these opportunities to really just be like, this is next level stuff that we don't even completely understand and would love more people to help us refine it, is really how we're going to move that forward. So I think not only is it interesting and entertaining, but also very important to keep doing things like this in front of loads of people who can then make it even better.
One of the interesting moments came, I just happened to be standing over by Doogie, and Ty actually said, I'm not going to say it because it's not something that's public knowledge, but he actually said something that's a nickname of Doogie that nobody else knows.
Yes.
And so when you said it, Doogie turns to me and he goes, that's my nickname, but nobody knows that name.
Doogie actually pulled me aside afterwards while I was still in the Echo blog. I completely forgot that until just now. And he told me that outside the church afterwards. And it just made me feel like just a wave of nausea,
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, no. But yeah, it was interesting because I'm not the best at this. So like Stephanie said, there were moments where I took breaks in it. And, I hope that those moments didn't have crucial information coming through, like that moment for Doogie. But there were just some moments where you just had to breathe to hold on to yourself, like you were in Cerebro and X. You need a moment,
Right,
during the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to overplay this and sound like I'm making it sound like more than it is, but it could be easy to kind of lose yourself in this and maybe even lose a little bit of your sanity if you do this too much or if you stay under this too long.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I agree. You're touching either side, I'm assuming, and you're giving a piece of yourself at that time. And if you're unable to hold on to that grounding, like Steph talked about just briefly ago, where do you float off to, and how much do you lose there? Because when we came out, I did not feel normal anyway, and it was actually like just like some of the event guests that we were with that were just like, let's go do something really normal afterwards. And so, had a drink and talked about the day and
Right.
kind of fizzled out before I may or may not have gone into a cemetery with you shortly after.
But you need that moment. It's kind of like, when you watch a quick sitcom after watching a really scary horror movie before you go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the last thing you're thinking about.
That's exactly right. And especially for this, because it's just so derivative of your cognizant state that you really need to be able to recenter yourself after that. I felt so jumbled afterwards that, like, I don't know if it's on the video. I haven't watched the video back yet, guys. I apologize. But I'm hoping to do it tomorrow when I have more bravery. But one of the things I remember most is being able to take the headphones off in the the blindfold, and I felt so relieved but so confused. And I heard Steph say the same thing when someone shined the flashlight in our eyes. It was
Oh my
both,
God.
like, the worst thing that ever happened in my life, right?
Yes.
Like, in that moment.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's just somebody should have known better than to do that. It's like they've just been in the dark for almost an hour. Like,
Right. It was like next level. Like, it shined just, I don't know. I can't really explain it. Can you, Steph?
No, I already covered this because they were talking about the point in time where the truck light had flashed on us, and I actually said turn off the lights, but that's what I heard. And had I been able to see that light, I would have reacted the same way we both did when we pulled our blindfolds off and somebody flashed that light in our face.
Yeah,
because
true. Yeah.
It was so bright it hurt.
Yeah, it like went through your eyeballs to the back of your head.
Yep.
So
real grounding, real fast way to bring you back to earth.
Oh my God, yes.
Well, just to get into a little bit of this, and I might try to play some of it, kind of ducking and dodging around the file. But so at one point, Stephanie, you started spitting out something about a belt.
Yes.
And we were specifically asking you what kind of belt, and you would respond back with wampum. And basically, for those who are unfamiliar, King Philip's War was a war between the Native Americans and the colonists in 1675 into early 1676. And King Philip was also known as Metacom or Metacomet, who was the son of Massasoit, and he was the great sachem of the Wampanoag tribe. And so he was the one that actually made the decision after his father Massasoit had died, and his brother Alexander, who was the also known as Wamsutta, when he had been poisoned and killed by allegedly by the colonists, he was trying to decide whether or not to go to war against the colonists. And it was actually, he was in, from what I understand, in Plymouth Center, and there was an eclipse, and it was that eclipse that caused him to decide, okay, this is a sign that we should go to war against the English. And so this bloody battle happens. It's the bloodiest battle, bloodiest war per capita ever fought on U.S. soil. More of the population died in this war than in the Civil War. And at the end of it, King Philip gets killed. Metacom gets killed. His head is put on a pike feet from where we were all of Saturday night. And it sat there for 20 years. And as part of the spoils of war, the English, one of the English soldiers took the wampum belt from the Wampanoag tribe, which was a wampum belt. Now, we think of wampum as being like goods that they trade, and that was their form of money. But actually, wampum was the beads that they would put onto these belts that would tell the story of their tribe and tell the story of their people. So when the English took this belt from the Wampanoags, they took everything that they were all about. And that's been missing ever since. Nobody has any idea where it turned up. Some people think that it might be, locked away in a museum somewhere. One of the big theories is that it actually got cut up and divided up into smaller pieces, and different soldiers took pieces of it with them. But there's long been a theory that if you can find the wampum belt and bring it back to Plymouth or bring it back to the Wampanoag people, that a lot of the hauntings associated around this area with King Philip's War will go away. And Stephanie started talking about the belt, started talking about the wampum belt, and she kept saying, like, dig deep, dig deep. And so the question came up in the chat room if we dug around anywhere, because you kept saying dig deep. But in actuality, we don't have to worry about that, because we think that from the questioning, we think what it was she was talking about, they're having an archaeological dig at Burial Hill, because they're putting in a new parking lot for the town hall, a new parking garage for the town hall. And so they're doing an archaeological dig before they start doing that. And they've been turning up some artifacts. So maybe it was related to that. At one point you actually said, like, get the belt or something. And unbeknownst to you, Jeff Campbell took his belt off and said, oh, here's the belt. And you say, no, not that one.
That's so creepy.
Like, direct response to what he had done. But it kept coming up. You kept calling me by name and telling me to basically to find the wampum belt. And I was arguing with you, saying, I've been trying. I don't know where to look. You have to tell me where to look. But it was an ongoing conversation. What else was very interesting is that you two, without knowing it, were talking to each other quite a bit.
Right.
You were even trying to, like, tell knock-knock jokes back and forth.
That was so weird.
That was. You're probably sitting there, Ty, wondering why you're saying like knock knock over and over again.
It was so obnoxious. I just wanted it to stop, but I didn't realize that Ty was actually directly responding to me when I was saying knock knock.
I can't wait to see this video to see. Did it ever get to the end of the joke? Like what?
No.
What,
I think at one point it was close.
At one point, it was like knock knock, and then who's there, and then Doogie.
Yeah, that was the joke.
Like that was the joke.
well, that's quite a punchline.
Right.
And then Doogie said like, "Oh, figures, I got to be the butt of the joke here."
Right.
That's awesome.
But probably the weirdest moment. Oh, I think I can probably find it if I look.
You're not going to play that on the radio.
You don't want me to play that on the radio?
You're not going to play that on the radio. If it's what I think you're going to play.
It is exactly what you think I'm going to play.
The weirdest moment?
I don't know if you're from. I don't know. Did anybody tell Ty about what happened?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Well, why don't you talk a little bit there, and I'll.
Why don't I talk a little bit? Do you want me to tell what happened, or do you want me to wait for people to hear it?
Just preface.
So
For
the
new
actual
center?
the actual part of it, I actually said, I called out you, or I called out Porter. There was.
All right.
Wait, what? You found it?
Sorry, no, but I did find another weird moment.
Okay.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I couldn't hear what you were
All
saying. So I do a game on Echo Vox quite a bit, where whenever I'm using it, I will say, do you want to play a game? And sometimes, more often than not, whatever is there responds with no, but then we end up playing it anyway, where I count to 10, but I skip a number, and then I ask what number it was that I skipped. And a lot of the times I will get a direct answer. But a lot of times what will happen is I'll start saying like 1, 2, 3, and then over the Echo Vox you'll hear 4, 5.
Mm-hmm.
So that happened twice with you, Stephanie, where I said, I'm going to count to 10, and I want you to tell me what number I skipped. And I counted to 10, and I skipped like 5 or something. Mm-hmm. And you didn't answer. And then I started counting again, and I said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then you said 10, as I said 9. And that was early on in the session. Then later on in the session, Carol said, Tim, play the game again. So I said, okay, I'll do it again. And so I did it, and the same thing happened where I skipped a number, and then I asked you what I skipped, and you didn't answer, and then I counted again, so we can put that through.
For new center?
8, 9, 10. What number did I skip?
It's a lot to take on.
No, it's not. It's 10 numbers. 9 numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9.
10.
Multiple?
Bam. And then multiple. Right after. Sorry, Matt. I know I was supposed to tell you what the time was so you can sync up the video. I'm sorry. But that happened twice. But that one was the most interesting because right after that, you said it first of all right on the dot, and then Ty says multiple.
Right.
And it would the second time that it had happened. So you can kind of you can read in too much to some of this stuff, I'm sure.
Right.
But this seems pretty much like
It was intelligent.
Yeah. I don't think we're reading into too much there.
No.
I'm gonna dive back in.
Are you gonna dive back in?
Yeah, because I gotta find that part.
But why?
Why don't you keep me up on what you're talking about, Steph, here? The most intense part is having only been under it, it all felt like gibberish to me. I don't know if you guys talked about that in the first half of the hour, but what being underneath actually sounds like. But for me, at least, I came out of it thinking that it was an absolute bust, and the reason why I was kept under for so long was because nothing had happened.
I feel like I had such an emotional tie to what was happening that I knew something was happening, but I didn't know what. But before I watched the video again, I felt like maybe nothing happened, and watching it from the outside perspective, it wasn't going to be as cool as everybody said it was. But there were definitely times where I felt myself feeling shocked or actually laughing out loud at the two of us going back and forth between each other without knowing. So it was definitely a weird situation, but you feel like you're just floating and you don't know what's happening.
I think that's exactly right. I think it was interesting too, because what I do remember a little bit is there are points where, and maybe because you were holding my hand, it felt like I could feel anxiety at one point, and it would phase into like laughter, like in like happiness, and then there was this really point that it really felt like sexually perverted for a while.
Yes, it was definitely that.
Yeah, and then it would just like move through it, and it almost like I could feel you feel it. And that was interesting in its own, because it felt like there were several different sections of the experience, and the answers were derivative of those feelings.
So it's not the perverted part that I've pulled up yet. But I did find a pretty interesting part. Oh yeah, no, it got pretty weird, but I did find a pretty interesting part. We're talking about the wampum belt, so I'm gonna put that through right now, and Matt's gonna sync it up. Matt, you ready? Okay, here we go. Right now, you want to get into it?
Wampum.
What is wampum?
Belt.
I'm here to say that.
It says belt. Who is wampum belt?
I need it.
You hear that? When
You need the belt.
rough
Who gave up the
uncle.
belt?
Tucked under.
Where?
Come help me find it.
Where is it though? Do you have any idea where it is?
Maybe that's what's
Coming
upstairs.
to find you.
Is the wampum belt here?
Come.
Is that what's up?
Are you looking
Up.
for? Are you looking for
Mud.
your hand?
It's hanging.
What's hanging?
The belt.
Where is it hanging? We want to find the belt.
Retrieve.
If we
Yep.
retrieve the belt, what will happen?
That.
Complete.
Will it all end?
Never.
Goofy.
This is you. I
And
will explain afterwards what
three.
this conversation's about.
Rap.
So the wampum belt is here, in this building.
Never.
Message for Dave.
It was never in this building, but where is it?
Yes.
Good. It's not a complaint. It's about character.
Ty's getting
Not-
a dissertation over there.
It's like he's leaving a message on an answer sheet.
These are phonetic sounds that he's supposed to be hearing, not full, complete sentences. I talk a lot. So, I want to know where this wampum belt is.
Short
Have an idea where I
boy.
can find it?
Where should we look?
We'll give him 5.
In a compartment.
In a compartment where? What in
Carol.
In what country?
Like you didn't know that I went back to that
You
question.
have to look
All of
under.
you.
In this country?
Westward.
In this land?
Bald man.
Or far away?
Bald man. Bald man.
Yep.
It's guarded.
I want to find a belt, but you have to tell me where I can look.
It.
Yeah.
What's it guarded by?
So that's a lot of talk there about the wampum belt and where it would be located.
Yeah, that's not even getting to the dig deep part either.
No, this
But-
is like some of the early discussion about it.
I think it was before I started talking about wampum. That's when I said Metacomet head, and it was like direct hits over and over and over, and you were just talking over it. You totally missed it that night.
Yeah, because I'm just kind of in the moment of asking the questions.
Right.
That's interesting too, because it's like there's a double-edged sword there, where like if I heard Metacomet come out, I wouldn't know to repeat it because I'm historically removed from the area that you're more savvy in. Because Metacomet would have sounded like nothing to me, and so then again, it also adds to the how much did I miss? You know, because there are definite I would say 60% of the noises that came through I didn't repeat because they didn't sound like words. You know, but that's the hard part of being the filter.
Right.
Is trying to figure out what's actually supposed to be said, because they feel different sometimes. But like I said, Metacomet doesn't sound like a word to me because I'm not used to the history down there, so I might have missed it, when it was supposed to be said.
You know what's funny too is I kind of compare it to when you're doing a mediumship reading. Again, you're the filter, and there are times where you hear things or you see things that don't make sense at all, but you have to say them or you have to do your best to try to describe them to the person that's sitting in front of you. And I've kind of removed that filter as much as possible. So I think maybe that helps me in these circumstances while doing this type of method, because I'm used to just like, hey, this sounds crazy, but I'm going to try to say, stay on course as much as I can. But at the same time, like sound it out if I can't figure out what it was, but trying to like tapping into that intuitive part a little bit and trying to make it clear. I also, before I begin either a mediumship reading or this type of method, I ask, when I go through my ritual of trying to connect, I ask them to try to make it as clear as possible too, because I want to be able to say as much as possible. So it's really interesting to see, what variables were at play and if anything that I did or said beforehand helped me out.
I think that's hugely important and fascinating that you say that too, because it does, even from just that clip, it sounds like you're more on target than I am. And you have that practice with removing the filter. Where I was at was I was purposely filtering some stuff because there was some stuff that I remember being said in my ears that I consciously said I will not verbally repeat.
Right.
With people in the room, of
yes.
like, especially like really disgusting or stupidly violent.
Mm-hmm.
I won't say it because it's just such a cliche and it's not helping anyone in the room have a further conversation.
But I have to wonder if some of the stupidly violent stuff was pertinent to that conversation because of the war.
I bet it was. But then again, there's that moment where it's just like, here's 30 guests that are sitting out there and some really violent talk that it's like, you know what? This sounds very stereotypically ghostly scary. Let's get back to the wampum belt maybe.
Yeah. Even though you didn't know what was happening.
No idea.
It was probably one of our weirdest adventures.
That's saying a lot too.
I know. But wait till you see the video. I'm like, you need to text me as soon as you see it.
That's my priority tomorrow is apple picking and then the video.
Yes. I mean, apple picking obviously comes first because it involves food.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But then dead people second.
Yes. Food, then dead people.
But I don't want to run out of time here before midnight. Tim, what is this big moment that you're talking about that Steph doesn't want you to play?
It's dirty.
Oh, is it? Okay.
But I couldn't believe that. Like, I had to say it because it was a full sentence, but I'm glad I did just because it really... It was right on the money. Like,
see, then again, that goes back to the moment of like filtering or not, because if it was during the dirty section that I was like not talking about masturbating,
oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, it was just like those are the things I'm not going to say out loud. So I'd wonder if that was the same time that I was like actively refusing to say the masturbatory things that were like coming to my ear,
Right. Did you find it, Tim?
I didn't find that, but I found another good cut.
Okay.
Matt, 25 minutes. I found another good cut where there was some pretty intelligent stuff. I don't know if I'll be able to find exactly what happened, but I'm going to after we run this cut. I'm definitely going to look for it.
Yeah.
Because it's hysterical.
It's not though. And you know what? The cut that you're talking about that you're looking for is I actually say touch him first and nothing happens. It's the second time that I say it that comes about because you weren't paying attention.
You were calling him by name first.
Right.
Who?
Porter.
So I'll just tell the story because I might not be able to find the cut. So at one point she's calling Porter, and you were calling him in kind of a come hither way.
That was a female
Porter,
voice that was coming in. It was creepy. The way that I described it afterwards was, if anybody's ever seen Hocus Pocus, it was like Sarah Jessica Parker singing "Come Little Children." That's the way that it was calling out to Porter, and it wouldn't stop. So I finally gave it attention, and that's what happened.
See, that's interesting because the things that were repeating in my ear, I had that thought of, is it just saying this repeatedly until I say it out loud, and therefore I did not say it because I didn't want to give it give it space.
Right.
So we both had the same experiences and had visceral opposite reactions to them.
I dove head first.
And I said, back off, my shield's up.
Right.
Yeah.
It did say at one point, when you were calling him over and you were like, Porter, Porter, Ty then says something about how he has no hair.
Yes.
And which, Porter shaves his head. So as you were calling him, I just happened to be over in that area. I was walking over in that area, and you said, touch him.
Mm-hmm.
And you said it a few times. But when you said, touch him, I put my hand on his shoulder. And I held it there. And you said, touch him a couple more times. And it got to the point where, now it's, kind of weird that my hand's been on Porter's shoulder for this long.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, can I stop touching him? And he said, yeah, it's getting kind of awkward. And then you come through and say something like, not the balls.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was the part that I was trying to find. But I found this other cut where it gets really interesting. So I'm going to play that now. I don't think I'm putting pieces together.
You pushed me.
Bradford.
What'll happen if we go to Bradford's grave?
Last night.
Tick 'em.
Did that say music?
Trespassing.
This is great.
So the first time I went to Governor Bradford's grave, I recorded an EVP of music.
Applause. I hear applause.
What?
Awesome.
Nighttime. Trespassing.
Gimp.
Is that why Tim is an idiot?
Thanks, Dan.
Fit.
Leave him alone.
Sorry.
You're not sorry.
You're right.
Button it up.
So for those
Idiot.
who cannot hear each other, they have
Back
noise
at you.
canceling headphones on, and they're both using Echo Box at full blast. So they can't hear the questions, they can't hear each other's answers.
Idiot.
Bradford.
Good girl. Good one.
Idiot.
This was both of you all night, back and forth, calling me an idiot.
You weren't supposed to be there.
Idiot.
Tim.
That's why you
Yes.
What
I
they
wasn't the only
mean,
one up there,
they're filthy.
Rule breaker.
She's just making this up to pick on me now. Yeah, right.
Dumb.
What was
E.
Tim's condition?
Wonky.
Goddamn right. I don't know if anybody heard me talking about it, but I talked about how I couldn't find the grave I
Carol.
was trying to find that I knew where it was, but it was like the whole
Give
cemetery
back.
was getting turned around on me. Like I would go walk into one area.
Champion.
Move.
Says again, ulcer.
I think
Mike.
this might have been the time when you started calling
Dan.
Porter over.
Yeah. I think so.
It's funny because,
Him.
you had said
Cam.
Nightshade.
when
Please.
Dan said, maybe that's why they called you an idiot. And I said, thanks,
You
Dan.
want me to
That's when he
stop?
said, leave him
Kept it
alone.
close.
Yeah.
And then he said sorry, and you said, you're not sorry.
He. Restricted. 2.
Dan,
Let
when
us
you review the footage of it, you have
come.
to with that one.
Back to
I know you're tomorrow.
Do you want the camera on?
Carol.
Yes. Do you want the camera on?
Has a
Uh-oh.
That was good. Yeah. Well, your secrets.
up. Ash.
You can kind of hear the echo box in the background, too.
Look. Around. Just. Poor. Carol.
Captain.
My almost sentences are so frustrating right now.
It's very rare that they both say.
I'm sorry, Ty?
I said my almost sentences that I'm saying are mega frustrating to me right now. Like, trying to just wanting it to spit it out or something.
Yeah, you can see it in the video. Like, you're saying things, and then like your hand will just move out. Like, come on, what else? Like you know that there's more to the message there that you're just not hearing.
Right. It comes from the background of, like, whenever I do an EVP session, I want it to be conversational and gain knowledge, of what's actually happening. And the hard part being under is, like, you're just basically proving that the place is haunted, but not moving the needle of, like, why or what does it want or what can we do. You're just trapped as that filter. So a little frustration there.
The other thing that I noticed too, like in that clip, there's a lot of like three-way conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of you guys kind of playing off each other and playing off what's in the room. So just to give people an idea of what was actually being discussed there, the night before, we had gone over to the grist mill and to the duck pond with some people, and we had talked about wanting to go up to Burial Hill, but you're not supposed to go to Burial Hill at night because it closes at dusk, and we did not have permission to be up there ahead of time. Now, I know I always say for people that they should get permission before they do anything, but in this particular case, I've been up at Burial Hill at night before. I wasn't really that worried about being in trouble, and I knew that we were going to be following the rules. So Stephanie and Ty and myself walked up there because I wanted to make sure, Ty, that you got the chance to get up there and see it before, we got too wrapped up on other stuff. So the three of us walked around up there for a little while, and it was very weird because
it was a super weird night.
It was like I couldn't find my bearings of a place that I'd been to multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting kind of turned around trying to show you guys certain graves, and I can't find where we're going. But we did eventually find Bradford's marker.
We did. And what's funny is I was joking with Ty that, like, oh, maybe you drank too much. Like, just joking around because I know you had, like, a couple beers.
Mm-hmm.
But because I'm like, why can't he find this place? This is so weird. Ty, I don't know if you remember, but when I went to go walk out, I walked out the wrong way. And you were like, no, we have to go this way. So I was even lost and confused because I thought I knew the way that we walked in, and I didn't. And when the next night when we were up there with Jeff and everybody else, I remember thinking, like, let's walk back down the other way, the way that we originally came up the first night. Because there's two different ways to walk in and out. There's more than that, but the two ways that we were using, I said I wanted to walk back out down that way so that way we could just go right into the hotel parking lot and go. We don't have to walk around. And I said, we're going to go this way. This is the way to go. And I ended up walking out the same entrance that we walked in before. So I kept getting lost trying to get out, which was so bizarre.
It was very weird.
Interesting, too. That first night that you guys brought me in there, having never been there before, there was a very strange vibe to it all, which I personally loved because it felt like Halloween had finally come. Like, there was a full moon, I think. It was windy, and the old dead leaves, the crispy leaves, were hitting the gravestones, which was perfect for me. But it also felt like we were very much not alone, which is strange for me for a cemetery because I've rarely been in, like, a haunted cemetery. That's usually the last place that I assume spirits tend to stay.
Right, but I always tell people, your past loved ones are not hanging around there waiting. Like, yes, you can go pay respects, and if that's what makes you feel better, that's great. But with 1600s and 1700s, it's sometimes early 1800s, I noticed that there are a lot of spirits that are still attached to graves. And I could probably go on the soapbox rant on why, but our death customs during that time in New England were so bizarre that it almost scared people to cross over. And they still hang out and they still guard their graves, and it's so creepy.
I want you to do a lecture on that because the ritual that you had us do to leave the cemetery that night was so respectful and wonderful that I just want to hear all of your research on death customs.
I could probably put that together eventually.
I would like to do an entire show on that.
Okay, we can do that.
Yeah.
That's something.
It's like that weird knowledge that I've had forever that I just don't talk about.
You should definitely talk about it and put it in an organized thought pattern because this would be amazing to lecture on. Is like here's knowledge from the 1600s to the 1800s of death customs and proper etiquette when being in these places, because the rules are different whenever you're paranormal investigating. You need to know. In my lecture, I talk about knowing your surroundings, and that means, both the structural integrity of where you are, but also the esoteric essence of a place, too.
I'll make a deal with you. I'll do a lecture on it if you send me those supernatural pictures of Porter that you put together.
Oh, hell yeah. I'll fix them up better. I'll make some more for you, too.
That way I can put them in my lecture, too, because I just feel like that's going to be a thing from now on.
You got it.
So,
absolutely. Porter as Sam Winchester with flowing hair is absolutely
hilarious
for you.
So, Matt, don't worry about finding the video for this, because it's a real little quick thing I'm going to drop in there. But we were talking about at the beginning of the show how you were on the Bartcast, Stephanie, today, and how I told you to praise the Supreme Leader. I just want to play this one little cut that came through from Ty while we were doing the Estes Method in Plymouth last weekend.
Leave. Bed. Bart. Us. Him.
I don't know what that means, but maybe that was the ghost praising Bart L through Ty.
You know what I laughed hysterically at, and I'm so juvenile, but there was one point where Ty said something or fart, and like everybody just erupted in laughter. I don't know if you remember saying that, Ty, but I actually laughed out loud when I heard it, just because of how raw and real it was, and like you were just so nonchalant saying it.
Just trying to figure out what's coming through the headphones.
Right.
It's funny what people laugh at, because when you have the headphones on, you can't hear it.
Right.
So you can't gauge your audience of what's working and what's not. So I mean, that's one of the things I'm excited about listening to the playback of this, to see like what people like might have been shocked at, because like what was relevant to them, and then it's interesting listening to these clips that people laugh at things that with the headphones on I would have never thought were funny. Like that's interesting.
Tim, if you're looking for it, the part where I say the balls, like I touch my face, if that helps, because I know you're just.
And can we give a shout out to Dan for putting this together?
Right. Yeah. Dan is awesome. If anybody needs video, anything, Danny Boy Productions.
Just on his own accord, videotaped his whole thing for us, and mostly for the listeners and audience members, but he didn't have to, and we would have been lost to the ether of good storytelling if he hadn't done it.
Right. Poor Dan always ends up on like a weird adventure with me too, and he just looked at me afterwards, was like, I don't know what just happened. It's like, it's okay, just accept. I know. It was hysterical.
I think that is probably like a common view of everyone that was in the room that night, and I can say that with clout, because when we went under, there was a handful of people in that group that was going to do it and watch us. And I assumed that when that group rotated, they'd pull us out and that would be the end of the night.
Right.
And then an hour later, I don't know what happened. I'm assuming groups didn't rotate. They just filtered in.
They did.
Because how many people were in that room, Tim, when we took our blinders off? Because there had to see like this chorus of people surrounding us.
Yeah, there had to have been over 50 people in the room by the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
So we went from 10 to an hour later, most people that were investigating.
Well, part of it was we went kind of over our time. They were supposed to switch.
Yeah.
But a lot of the people that were upstairs started hearing about what was going on. And what's funny is Zaffis said that they were getting stuff upstairs, too, at the same time. And some of the stuff was kind of syncing up with what we were saying. But he was also getting Ed coming through upstairs, too.
Mm.
So very interesting stuff. Matt, you get that queued up? All right, we're going to end it on the best part.
Really? You found it?
I think I did. So we're gonna play this. Hold on.
Sorry, everyone.
Let's see what happens.
This is not me.
Yeah, did I have anything to apologize for?
Touch him.
Hold on, I'm gonna pause. I'm sorry. What was that, Ty?
Well, do I have anything to pre-apologize for, or were they kosher during this part?
No, you're actually pretty good.
Thank God. That's why I filtered stuff.
So Matt, drop it back to 3237 if you can, and then we'll run it from there. All right, here we go. This is our last little bit of Estes Method Echo Vox fun for the night. You had already called Porter at this point, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Touch him. Porter.
Flip.
I'm touching Porter.
Just do it.
I did. I'm checking him.
Fascinating that.
No.
What was that?
There.
Touch him.
I am.
He's here.
It's getting awkward now. We're not caressing. All right.
By the balls.
Dan, being the expert videographer that he is, turns the camera around and just gets Porter's face perfectly right at that moment.
That was just perfect.
Oh my god, I can't wait to see that. That wasn't so bad.
No, but still, in the moment, it was hysterical.
I bet, especially the way that Steph says it. Like, it's, again, you saying stuff that you don't like to filter. It's like, you can tell that you know you should.
Right.
I just felt like I needed to say it, even though, because I mean, logically thinking, I'm saying touch him. So I'm like, I know it's pertinent to what I just said, but this is so awkward. So that's why you can hear it in my voice go, by the balls? Like, why?
I'm still mentally present, and I know the 3 words that I just said, and I know how this is going to sound.
Yeah.
So, but if I can recall, if I heard myself right, was Stephanie saying touch him, and I was saying there?
Yes.
There?
Yes.
Yep.
I mean, I think that's a sync up, right?
Yeah,
I would say
definitely
so.
is.
It was definitely an experience. Well, Ty,
Only I had reached out with my other hand and pointed directly at Porter's crotch, while blindfolded. There you have it.
Before we let you go, Ty, I got one last question. Are you going to do it with Echo Vox again?
With you guys present, sure, why not?
All right, good. At least we haven't scared you off it completely. Well, thank you for joining us, and thank you for being a guinea pig in this dual Estes Method experiment last weekend.
Oh, always further weird with you guys. I appreciate it, and thank you for having me tonight.
Take care. Have a great night.
You too. Good night, guys.
Bye.
And everybody can check out Ty's work with Haunt Me. Just go to the Haunt Me YouTube channel and go to hauntme.com, and you can find out all about their show. Speaking of shows, our show is just about over. Definitely go and watch this entire video. Let us know what you think. Send us an email, spookycrew@spookysouthcoast.com. Let us know what you find to be some of the more interesting parts, maybe some stuff that we might have missed, some stuff that you're hearing going on that we might have not picked up on. And we'll be back next week with an all-new episode of the show. It is going to be Paranormal Christmas. It'll be October when we come back next week. So we'll have plenty of great stuff to talk about, plenty of great events to tell you about, and all the different places where you can come out and see us throughout the course of October and beyond. So until next week, and thank you to all the new audience as well. Until next week, we want you all to stay spooktacular.